Today's Chinese Communist Party, CCP, officials truly find themselves with no path forward and no retreat behind them. Outside the system, the so-called Restoration Party is calling for a 2026 New Year's popular uprising, planning to emulate the ancient Liangshan outlaws' robbery of the birthday tribute by seizing the illicit wealth stolen by corrupt CCP officials and using it to relieve people's hardship. Inside the system, Xi Jinping has raised his butcher's knife, preparing to launch a new round of purges and mass cleansings. He brazenly declared, "I want to see whether the blade of self-revolution is sharper or the necks of these politically disloyal and corrupt elements are harder." The officialdom instantly turned into an execution ground. It seems that in 2026, CCP officials may be facing the most brutal double fate dilemma since the founding of the regime. Outside awaits the rage of the people, inside awaits political slaughter. Is this not a doomsday landscape of the CCP system? This era forces all CCP officials to stand at a crossroads. Will they continue being sacrificial offerings of tyranny, or will they choose to stand with the people? No one understands the corruption of the system better than CCP officials themselves, nor do they understand more clearly that the regime can no longer sustain itself. That is why Beijing is forcing the children of naked officials to return to China, binding them and the party state tightly to the same sinking ship. And this ship is nearing its moment of submersion. Don't miss the next drop. Subscribe and hit the bell. Is the Ministry of Public Security's internal report revealing a restoration party inside China? Being a CCP official is no easy task now. According to the well-known Australia-based legal scholar Yuan Hongbing, who told Conjonghua Vision Times that conscientious insiders within the system have revealed an alarming development. On November 20th, 2025, China's Ministry of Public Security submitted an internal report to the CCP Central Secretariat. The Secretariat has already forwarded this report to provincial level and ministerial level units nationwide. The main content of this report can be summarized as follows. Recently, a document signed by the Restoration Party, Special Party branch of the Beijing-Tianjin occupied zone appeared. Classified as a hostile file, it has circulated in more than a dozen major cities and spread to dozens of towns and villages. The document's title is, "During the 2026 New Year, seize the illicit wealth stolen by CCP dog officials to aid the people's livelihood and accumulate the energy for a people's uprising." The document claims that while many modern-minded officials have begun storing their bribe money using cryptocurrency, the vast majority still hide their illicit wealth in their own homes or those of relatives and mistresses. Moreover, after losing their stolen money, CCP officials would never dare report it to the police. Just as the Liangshan outlaws once robbed corrupt officials' birthday tribute, today's revolutionaries will seize the CCP bandits' illicit wealth to help the people, building financial momentum for resistance. Such robbing the rich to help the poor, it declares, is a legitimate act of justice. Targets include CCP corrupt officials and also the businessmen who serve as their white-glove proxies. The document ends with a special call for nearly 300 million migrant workers returning home for the new year, as well as unemployed college graduates, to rise up and respond to the call. So CCP officials, take note. During the 2026 New Year, don't go home too late. Your home might be zeroed out before you arrive. Public anger has reached a critical point. People are no longer waiting for institutional reform. They are preparing to take matters into their own hands to reclaim stolen wealth. Once the flames of a popular uprising ignite, the first ones burned will be the officials whose homes are stuffed with cash. Even worse, the people fully understand that CCP officials are too afraid to report these losses. This is an extremely dangerous signal. The public no longer sees the CCP as a legitimate government, but they do see CCP officials as targets for liquidation. Turning the blade inward, self-revolution. While the people prepare to act, can officials hide safely inside the CCP fortress? Don't forget, Xi Jinping is sharpening his knives. On December 1st, the CCP journal Qiushi republished an article by Xi Jinping on self-revolution. Yuan Hongbing said this was Xi's announcement to the tens of millions of CCP officials that another wave of turning the blade inward is coming. The outcome will be total loyalty or rivers of blood. In the article, Xi sternly warns that the symbol of self-revolution is that the anti-corruption campaign, used as a disguise for purges and mass political cleansings, will continue endlessly. Xi wants to use thunderous force to intimidate those who disobey his will. He intends to lock all officials' power inside a cage, but there will be only one prison guard holding the key, and that guard is Xi Jinping. According to Beijing political insiders, Xi recently declared with lethal fury during a Politburo study session. For those whose loyalty has ruptured and who have betrayed the ideals of the party, I will punish each and every one, absolutely without mercy. I want to see whether the blade of self-revolution is harder, or the necks of these politically disloyal, corrupt elements are harder. Since the 20th Party Congress, major scandals combining political disloyalty and massive corruption have burst forth like rapid-fire explosions. These officials have been funneling astronomical sums obtained through corrupt power out of China into overseas accounts, afraid that if they delay even a moment, the collapse of the regime will engulf them. When the CCP collapses, their first thought is not loyalty, it is escape. For them, overseas bank accounts, overseas properties, and overseas family members are their real motherland. Their actions lay bare one reality. CCP officials have no confidence in Xi Jinping's regime and no loyalty to his rule, only deep fear for their own future and determination to jump ship early. Xi Jinping's new knife targets the naked officials. CCP officials want to jump ship early? Not so fast. Xi's newest knife aims directly at naked officials. And the blade is soft. Will your children come back to sync with the party? Recently, Chinese officialdom has shown the atmosphere of parents' chat groups exploding. At the conclusion of the 14th meeting of the CPCC Standing Committee, the authorities suddenly announced that 9 deputy director-level figures, including former central bank governor Yi Gang, were all dismissed from their posts. Observers initially suspected a major corruption case. Upon closer inspection, the issue was not the officials themselves, but their children. Reportedly, the current policy is as follows. To further discipline naked officials, the CCP now requires children of provincial ministerial-level officials studying abroad to return to China within 6 months after graduation. If they refuse, their parents will be reassigned from leadership positions. Insiders say that after the 18th Party Congress, the CCP harshly restricted naked officials. Those whose spouses or children had emigrated were removed from key posts. Only top leaders' families were exempt. Now the rules are even harsher. If your kid doesn't return within 6 months, congratulations, you're getting demoted. Yi Gang, though dismissed as deputy director of the Economic Committee, appears calm. He continues meeting foreign guests as a CPCC Standing Committee member and lecturing on digital finance at Peking University. It's as if to say, I'm fine, only my hat was removed. The definition of naked official has now expanded. A shift of wind is enough to make you non-compliant. Reports say several of the 9 dismissed officials have children already settled overseas with no intention of returning. Yi Gang himself is a sea turtle, overseas returnee, who once taught in the U.S., and his son is said to have been born and raised in America, certainly unwilling to return. Not long ago, Shanghai's 59-year-old deputy mayor Lu Duo was abruptly removed. Rumors also point to her children refusing to return. She was dismissed on September 25th. Lu Duo, formerly an expert in networks and AI, was once head of the China Academy of Information and Communications Technology and director of the Ministry of Industry and IT's Technology Department. She parachuted into Shanghai in 2021 as deputy mayor. No official explanation for her removal was given. It appears the CCP's KPI for officials no longer evaluates economic performance or administrative achievements. It evaluates whether their children come back to China. Whether a foreign-educated child returns has become the core indicator of a political collective punishment system. Why does the CCP fear naked officials so much? A naked official is someone whose spouse and children have emigrated, whose money is overseas, and who themselves stay in China merely to hold the position. In essence, naked officials are escape route planners, spouse abroad, children abroad, wealth abroad. Only the person is physically in China. The CCP fears not that they are corrupt, but that once they finish plundering, they will flee. Even more critical is that the regime's security depends on one underlying logic. Everyone must bind their future to the CCP sinking ship, and no one should have a lifeboat. But naked officials expose the system's most embarrassing truth. Those who know this regime best are the least willing to let their children remain within it. This is what truly torments the leadership in Zhongnanhai. You can force ordinary people's children to stay in China, but you cannot force officials' children to do the same. You can demand that the people love the country, but you cannot explain why the people in power themselves cannot love it. When an official's child refuses to return, it publicly declares, "Even I don't believe in the regime my parents serve." This strikes at the CCP's most fragile weakness, its legitimacy. Naked officials must therefore face autumn after the harvest retribution, because in the CCP's logic, loyalty must be a family bucket package. You return, your child returns, and your family's passports should preferably sit inside the party's drawer. The CCP machine is devouring its own officials. The CCP machine is now consuming its own officials. For those already on the chopping block, how can they escape the fate of people are the fish and the regime is the butcher? They can wait for the blade to fall, sacrificed in Xi's purges, becoming offerings in intra-party factional struggle. They can be used as expendable stabilizers, pushed out to absorb the explosion when popular uprisings erupt, becoming funeral offerings when the regime collapses. But both paths lead straight into an abyss. There remains only one final path, awakening. To choose the people, to choose justice, to choose conscience. To refuse to sink together with the CCP and with personal dictatorship. The year 2026 may become the true watershed of Chinese officialdom. And the price of choosing the wrong side will not be losing one's position, but losing one's life as a burial sacrifice.